Please welcome to the stage, Frank Turek.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the beaches behind me, Petty Officer Michael Monsoor became a United States Navy SEAL. Let's go back to September 29th, 2006. Petty Officer Monsoor is standing on a roof in Ramadi, Iraq. He has two Navy SEAL teammates lying in the sniper-prone position next to him. They've already taken AK-47 fire and a rocket-propelled grenade, but they're not exactly sure where the enemy is. There's a bit of a lull in the fighting. Insurgents have blocked off the streets in Ramadi, and there's someone on the loudspeaker in the town mosque yelling, "Kill the Americans!" As Monsoor and his team are looking for the next attack, an insurgent from an unknown location throws a grenade up on the roof. It hits Monsoor in the chest, and it falls to his feet. Due to the length of the throw, there's no opportunity to pick it up and throw it back. He has only a split second to make a decision. He can leap through the doorway behind him and save himself, but if he does, his two teammates lying on the roof will surely die. Monsoor yells, "Grenade!" But instead of jumping backward to save himself, he jumps forward, chest first, onto the grenade. It detonates. 30 minutes later, 25-year-old Michael Monsoor is dead. His two teammates lying on the roof receive only minor injuries because Monsoor's body muffled the blast. One of the survivors said at Monsoor's funeral, "Mikey looked death in the face that day and said, 'You will not take my friends, I will go in their stead.'" I've never seen a United States president cry until April of 2008. That's when President George W. Bush invited Monsoor's parents into the East Room of the White House to give them their son's Medal of Honor posthumously. The president couldn't even get through the citation without breaking down. Since then, Monsoor's High School in Garden Grove, California, just north of here, built a new stadium. They named it Michael A. Monsoor Memorial Stadium. The golden trident insignia that the SEALs wear dominates the 50-yard line. January 2019, in this bay, right outside that window, the United States Navy commissioned the USS Michael Monsoor, the newest guided missile destroyer in the fleet. If you walk out that door and look out that window and look across the bay, you will see that ship sitting right out there, piered, just to the right. This is Monsoor's mother, Sally, being escorted onto the ship, named in honor of her fallen son. Now, why did they do this? Because Michael Monsoor literally sacrificed himself to save his friends. There's no greater love than to sacrifice yourself to save your friends, said Jesus of Nazareth before he went to the cross. Michael Monsoor sacrificed himself to save his friends. The question is, would anyone sacrifice himself to save you? And the answer is, someone already has. His name is Jesus of Nazareth. But in today's culture, a lot of people don't think the story's true. They think it's invented. They think it's made up. After all, it's got miracles in there. We don't believe in miracles anymore. And it was written down by religious people. We know religious people tend to embellish things. How can we believe in such a thing? How can we believe in such a thing as a resurrection? Well, I actually think it's quite easy to show that Christianity is true. You only need to answer 4 questions to show that Christianity is true. And this comes from our book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. If you answer these 4 questions, if you investigate them, I think you're going to realize that the answer to these 4 questions is yes. And if the answer to these 4 questions is yes, then Christianity is true. What are the 4 questions? Here are the 4 questions. Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And is the New Testament telling us the truth, particularly about the resurrection? Now, why are these the 4? First question, does truth exist? Why is that important? Because you hear people saying there's no truth. You got your truth, I got my truth. All truth is relative. Look, if there's no truth, Christianity can't be true. Of course, if there's no truth, then atheism can't be true either. In fact, if there was no truth, would you ever go to school? Would you ever go to church? Would you ever be able to call somebody out on a lie if there was no truth? Of course not. Lies presuppose truth. We're going to deal with that question here this morning. The second question, does God exist? Obviously, Christianity can't be true if there's no God, but we like to show, and we do this a lot at college campuses, that there really is a theistic God. We talk about 3 arguments for the existence of God. You don't need the Bible to know that God exists. In fact, you can show that God exists without any reference to any religious work. The third question is, are miracles possible? Obviously, you have to answer yes to that, because if miracles are not possible, Christianity can't be true. But not only are miracles possible, the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred, and even atheists are agreeing with the data for this miracle. What is the greatest miracle in the Bible? No, the resurrection's easy compared to the greatest miracle. The greatest miracle in the Bible is the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If that verse is true, every other verse is at least possible. Well, even atheists, ladies and gentlemen, are admitting the evidence that space, matter, and time came into existence out of nothing. If that's really true, if in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, then resurrections are possible, ladies and gentlemen. The fourth question is the New Testament true, particularly with regard to the resurrection? Because look, if the resurrection occurred, game over, Christianity's true. Of course, if the resurrection didn't occur, game over, it's false. You might as well sleep in on Sunday and do what you want the rest of the week, because if Jesus hasn't risen from the dead, as the Apostle Paul himself said in 1 Corinthians 15, your faith, my faith, our faith is in vain. But I actually think it's quite easy to show that Jesus has resurrected from the dead as well. Now, we don't have time to go through all this here this morning. I just want to spend a little bit of time here on point 1, does truth exist? Because you can have the best sermon ever, but in our culture, someone might say, well, that's just your truth, Pastor. I have my own truth. And I don't care what Paul said. I don't care what Matthew said. I don't care what Luke said. They had their own truth. I have my own truth. So if you can't tell them or show them why truth exists, a lot of times they're not going to be interested in the truth that you present from your pulpit. So I just want to spend a little bit of time on this question. Does truth exist? You guys ready to go? All right. Now, whenever you start talking about truth, you always have to start with Jack Nicholson. Right? Because Tom Cruise had him on the witness stand, and he said to him, Colonel, I want the truth. And Nicholson said, TPUSA pastors, if he said it that way, the movie would have gone nowhere. He did not say, you can't handle the truth. That's not how he said it. Here's how he said it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
All right, let's try that again. I want the truth. Now that felt better, didn't it? Didn't that feel better? Didn't you always want to be in church and just yell, you can't handle the truth? Well, there's a lot of people that can't handle the truth. They're saying, you got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative. If you can't show them why those statements are not true, then you're not going to get very far showing them that Christianity is indeed true. And what I'm about to share with you right now, I think is the most important thinking skill I've ever learned. Look, I already had a master's degree. I was 33 years old, and I didn't know what I'm about to show you now, to show you what a dimwit I was. And this thinking skill is so important. If you can communicate this to your congregation, you're going to get them to be able to believe in absolute objective truth, and then you can move on to showing them that Christianity is indeed true. And this thinking skill is so easy that once you get your mind around it, you're going to become a fearless apologist. What's an apologist? That's not someone who's apologizing. That's someone who's given evidence for what they believe. As you know, it comes from 1 Peter 3:15. Always ready to give an answer for the reason that the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. Now, the gentleness and respect thing is hard for me because I'm originally from New Jersey, all right? But here is the thinking skill. The best way of showing you the thinking skill is to give you an example of using it. If someone were to ever say to you, there is no truth, you should ask that person a question. What should the question be? You guys are sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher right now. If somebody says there is no truth, you're going to say, is that true? Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. Did I say that right? This is known as a self-defeating statement. What's a self-defeating statement? A self-defeating statement violates the law of non-contradiction, which says that opposite ideas cannot both be true at the same time and in the same sense. A self-defeating statement violates its own standard. It would be like me saying, I can't speak a word in English. What would you say if I said that? Yeah, you just use English to say it. Or it would be like me saying my parents had no kids that lived. Or my brother is an only child. Or everything I say is a lie. Some of you will get that tomorrow. Or all generalizations are false. Some of you will never get that one, all right? These are known as self-defeating statements. And here is the tactic you got to get good at using. This is the thinking skill. When somebody says something, what you want to do is you want to turn the claim on itself. So if somebody says there's no truth, you turn the claim on itself and you say, is that? All right, let's just do a few more of these. We have limited time. Suppose someone were to come along and say, all truth is relative. Someone says that and you turn the claim on itself, what question are you going to ask them back? Yeah, is that relative? Is that a relative truth? No, this is an absolute truth claim claiming all truth is relative. That's like saying I can't speak a word in English. Now, sometimes it isn't said this way. In today's culture, it's more said this way. There isn't the truth, only my truth. You know, you have your truth, I have my truth. You just live your truth, I'll live my truth, we'll all get along. It sounds so right. It sounds so Oprah, doesn't it? It sounds like everybody ought to agree with this. You've got your truth, I've got my truth. Now, if you turn the claim on itself, what question would you ask somebody who says this? This is the interactive portion of the program. Turn the claim on itself. If somebody says there isn't the truth, only my truth, what you want to say is that just your truth or the truth? Because if that claim is just your truth, in other words, it's just your opinion, then why should I believe it? But if you're claiming it's the truth, you just got done telling me in the first part of the statement, there are no the truths. There's only my truth and your truth. Notice, this is a the truth claim, claiming there are no the truths. Are you with me? I mean, this kind of claim is logically self-defeating. I know this is unpopular in our culture today, ladies and gentlemen, but there's no such thing as my truth or your truth. There's just the truth. In fact, if you're going to say you have your own truth, you might as well say I have my own math. I mean, suppose Pastor Rob says to me, hey, Frank, I need some work done. Come on over, do the work. I'll pay you $10 an hour, and you just tell me how many hours you worked, and I'll pay you. Now, Pastor Rob would never do this because he doesn't pay that much. But anyway, suppose I work for him for 15 hours, and I go to him, I go, Pastor Rob, I worked for 15 hours, $10 an hour. You owe me $150,000. He goes, what? I don't owe you $150,000. I owe you $150,000. And I go, Pastor Rob, you don't understand. I have my own math, all right? He's going to say, what are you, crazy? There's no such thing as my math or your math. There's just math. There's no such thing as my truth or your truth. There's just truth. And so you've got to set the record straight and not let people get away with this, because they're claiming there are no the truths, and they're using the truth to say it. Now, sometimes it's not said this way. Sometimes it's said this way. It's true for you, but not for me. Probably heard people say this, right? Well, Christianity may be true for you, but Buddhism's true for me. What do you say to this? Turn the claim on itself. If somebody says it's true for you, but not for me, say, hey, is that true for everybody? Is true for you, but not for me, true for everybody? Because if true for you, but not for me, is true for everybody, then true for you, but not for me can't be true, because it's true for everybody. Did I say that right? I know that can give you intellectual constipation if you think about it long enough, but that's because it's self-defeating. It's like saying I can't speak a word in English. Actually, there's a funner way of dealing with this. If somebody says it's true for you but not for me, say, sure, go try that with your bank teller. Yeah, go to your bank teller and say, look, economy's hurting, inflation's up, I need some extra money. Give me $100,000 out of my account. The bank teller looks at your account and says, I'm sorry, you only have $6.14 in your account. It's easy to get the money. You simply say, ha, that's true for you, but not for me. Give me the $100,000. Are you going to get the money? No, if it's true there was only $6.14 in your account, that's true for all people at all times, in all places, when referring to your account at that time. It's just true. It's not my truth or your truth. It's just true. Now, I speak at a lot of churches. I normally ask people at churches, I say, hey, do you think Christianity's true? And most people will say yes, and then I'll ask them why. Do you know what answer I get more than any other? Because I have faith. Is that a good answer? Does your faith change whether or not God exists or Jesus rose from the dead? No, your faith doesn't change a thing about those things. I mean, do you have to believe something to make it true? Do you have to believe in gravity to stay on the ground? Do people who don't believe in gravity float away? Hey, look, there's another one. Hey, if you believe, you'll come back. No, that's not the way it works. You say, why is the Bible always talking about faith then? Because there's two kinds of faith, very important distinction. There's belief that, and then there's belief in. Belief that is getting evidence that God exists, that Jesus rose from the dead, that the Bible is telling the truth. That's all evidentiary. That's all apologetics. But all the belief that in the world won't get your moral transgressions forgiven. For that, you got to go from belief that to belief in. And do you know that even the demons know that God exists better than we do? James, the half-brother of Jesus, who wrote that little book in the New Testament called, you guys are sharp this morning. James said even the demons believe that God exists, but they tremble. They know intellectually better than we do that God exists, but they don't trust in him. Because there's a difference between belief that and belief in. In fact, we know this in relationships. When I first met my wife 37 years ago this week on Coronado, and she's here now, but I can't point her out because she'll be mad. I got evidence that she would be a good wife, but all the evidence in the world didn't make her my wife. I had to take a step of trust in her to ask her to be my wife. And in a momentary lapse of judgment, she said yes. See? That's the difference between belief that and belief in. Most of the time, when the Bible's talking about faith, it's talking about belief in. After you know that Jesus is the Savior, trust in him to be your Savior. And so the Bible is pointing out that we have to have both kinds of faith. We have to have belief that to show people that it's true. And then we have to ask them to go not just from the head, but also from the heart to say, I want to be forgiven of my sins. And by the way, if you don't want to be forgiven of your sins, that's fine. God is not going to force you into heaven against your will. God will respect your free choice to reject him. This is probably the biggest objection you're going to get in today's culture. You ought not judge. In fact, Jesus said, don't judge. And you're a Christian. Why are you judging? Stop judging, you hypocrite. First of all, set Jesus aside for just a second. What's the logical problem with the claim? Yeah, if somebody says you ought not judge, turn the claim on itself and say, isn't that a judgment? I mean, if we're not to judge, why are you judging me for judging? Actually, did Jesus say don't judge? No, never said it. Sure he did, Frank. He said it in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. This is the heart of the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, I know this is going to sound weird, and I know most of you already know this because you're sophisticated, but our congregation doesn't know this generally. There are no verses in the Bible. There are no verses in the Bible. Do you think when Matthew's writing his gospel, he said, here's chapter 7, verse 1? No, when were the chapter and verse divisions put in? About 500 years ago to help us navigate the text, which is a good thing, right? Because it's a real long series of books. It'd be hard to find your way around without numbers. I mean, imagine you get up to preach one Sunday, nobody has numbers in their Bible, and you go, hey, let's go about 2/3 of the way in. Let's see if we can find the same spot. No, that wouldn't work, right? You've got to have numbers. The problem is we tend to think if it's got a number in front of it, at least the general population, they think they can just take that verse out and make it say whatever they want. We have to read around the passage. What does Jesus say about this? He doesn't just stop at judge not. He says, judge not, lest you be judged. By the same standard you judge others, you be judged by that standard. So before you try and take the speck out of your brother's eye, you hypocrite, which is a judgment, take the log out of your own eye first, then you'll be better able to help your brother. Is Jesus telling us not to judge here? No, he's telling us to take the speck out of our brother's eye. That involves making a judgment. He's simply saying, get that problem out of your life first so you can better help your brother. In fact, it would be ridiculous to say don't make judgments. Why? Number one, it's a judgment itself. Number two, we'd all be dead already if we didn't make judgments. You made 100 judgments just coming to this seminar this morning. And now you're going, this was a bad judgment. This guy's kind of crazy. Anyway. No, we all make judgments. What judgments do atheists make? There's no God. Jesus didn't rise from the dead. Bible's not telling the truth. There is no purpose or meaning to life. It's all hopeless. When you die, you're just going to become worm food. It's over. Have a nice day. These are all judgments. The question isn't whether or not you can make judgments. The question is, are your judgments true? I will say this, though. Jesus did save a very stern rebuke for people who were judgmental. And who were the judgmental ones in his day? Pharisees. Who were the Pharisees? They were the religious and political leaders of Israel. Many of them were on the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, to whom Rome delegated much of the day-to-day legal authority to. They were the lawmakers. They were the politicians. And Jesus went after these people. Are you telling me Jesus got involved in politics? Yes! And he wasn't so nice doing it. In fact, if you think Jesus was a sweet guy who's never said a bad word about anyone, you have not read John chapter 2, John chapter 8, or Matthew chapter 23. What happens in John chapter 2? Jesus makes a whip and he goes and he jacks people up in the temple. Sweet and gentle Jesus did this? Yes. And then in John chapter 8, he's going after these political, religious leaders, these Pharisees. He's having an argument with them. He's right in the middle of the argument. He says, your father is the devil. Jesus, you can't say that. That's not very Christ-like. Excuse me, I am Christ. Can you imagine you're having an argument with somebody and you go, your father is the devil. Never try that with a sibling. And then in Matthew 23, Jesus is going after these Pharisees again. What does he say? Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Oh, you look great on the outside. You're whitewashed tombs, but on the inside, you're full of dead men's bones. You go a mile to make a convert, and then once you make them a convert, you make them twice as much a son of hell as you are. How will you avoid being condemned to hell? What? Sweet and gentle Jesus said this? Yes, Jesus was not Barney. Can't we all get along, boys and girls? No, I came to bring a sword. It's going to divide mother and daughter, father and son. Jesus was tough. He was not Mr. Rogers. I mean, he was kind most of the time, but he certainly didn't go around saying, this sermon brought to you by the letter E. No, Jesus was tough. So read the Gospels and see who Jesus was. I know you do, but many in our congregation, they think Jesus was a 60s hippie child. Why was he killed? Number one, because he was tough. He claimed to be God. And number two, He spoke truth to power, particularly the temple authorities who knew Jesus really was the Messiah, I think. I think Caiaphas knew it. Because what does he say right after Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead? It's better that one innocent man die than the whole nation perish. He didn't want to lose his job. He didn't want to lose his power, Caiaphas, so he had Jesus killed. By the way, I've noticed one other thing about judging. You ever notice when you compliment somebody, which is a judgment, nobody gets upset? You know, if you say to your best friend, I really love you. You're such a wonderful person. I wish I could be like you. You think your friend's going to say, well, who are you to judge? That people don't have a problem with judging. They just have a problem with judgments they don't like. In fact, if you tell somebody something that's true and they get upset with you, you just help convict them. As Augustine said, we love the truth when it enlightens us. We hate the truth when it convicts us. A few military people in here, and by the way, I was in the Navy for 8 years, which stands for never again volunteer yourself. You always get more flack when you're over the target. If you're telling somebody the truth and they're shooting back at you, you're over the target. They don't want their evil deeds exposed. Jesus said, men love darkness rather than light. So, we could spend more time, but we only have 4 minutes left. I just want to point this out. Can everyone see the summary of what we just talked about here? That this statement and all the other statements we just went through, they all shoot themselves. Can everybody see that? So you've got to communicate to your congregation, ladies and gentlemen, if you could, that truth does exist. It's self-defeating to say there is no truth. Now, we do a lot of college campus events. Charlie's mostly speaking more on the political side of issues. We go to college campuses and present I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and then we open it up for Q&A. You can see this all on our website, crossexamine.org. This actually happens to be a picture from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, which loves the Bible about as much as the University of California at Berkeley does. And as you know, Charlie was just at Berkeley a few months ago. And here's a question I ask people when they get up to the microphone. If there's any hostility at all, I'll normally ask this question, and I recommend you inform your congregations of this question. It gets right to the bottom line. If Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? I've had atheists stand at that microphone in front of hundreds of people and say, no. No? I thought you were reasonable. I thought you were rational. Why do you say no, that you wouldn't believe something if it were true? Because they don't want it to be true. They don't want there to be a God. Why? They want to be God of their own lives. And they think God is going to get in the way of their happiness. They're not on a truth quest. They're on a happiness quest. And they're just going to believe whatever they think is going to make them happy. So always ask people the question, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? If they hesitate or say no, the problem's not in the head, it's in the heart. All you can do is pray for these people and then plant seeds. Now, I went through a lot here. There's much more. I want to send you the entire PowerPoint presentation. If you text the word evidence to 855-909-0582, I'm going to send you the entire PowerPoint presentation. I didn't have time to show you. It's 362 slides. I showed you 10 slides, okay? We have a book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, a DVD series, a new book called Hollywood Heroes, How Your Favorite Movies Reveal God. And if you buy any of these books online, all the proceeds will go to feed needy children. Mine, just so you know, all right? We also have a podcast and a TV program. If you go to our website, crossexamine.org, you can see all that. The podcast is called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. Now, when I was in the Navy, we had to earn golden wings, which were fairly hard to earn. But there's nothing more difficult in the Navy or any military to earn than a golden trident. That's what the SEALs wear. Very few people that start SEAL training on the beaches behind me finish. Maybe 5% do. But those that do finish, the SEALs wear that trident with pride. It is their identity. When Michael Monsoor was buried in Rosecrans Cemetery right here in San Diego, just about every Navy SEAL on the West Coast showed up for his funeral. And when they passed his casket, they took off their tridents and they pressed them into his casket. They took their identity and put their identity in the one that died for them. That's what we're supposed to do. But our culture says, no, put your identity in your political party, or put your identity in your race. There's only one race, the human race. Or put your identity in your bank account, or your sexual orientation, or your boyfriend, or your girlfriend. You know, ladies and gentlemen, none of those things are ultimate. We were not meant to put our identity in those fleeting things. We're meant to put our identity in the one that died for us, our Savior. And Christianity is the only worldview where you don't achieve your identity, you receive your identity. The Apostle John said, to those that receive him, he's given the right to become a child of God. Please tell your congregations that don't try and achieve your identity, receive your identity, and you will one day receive a resurrection to be with him and your loved ones who have also received their identity forever. Amen.